I wouldn't call myself a One Piece YouTuber. I every Sunday record my reactions and I review it. I give my thoughts on each chapter, but I don't cover One Piece a lot. But I'd be in real big trouble if I didn't talk about Luffy and his new devil fruit powers. Okay. First of all, spoiler warning. My God. Because if you have not read One Piece chapter 1044, first of all, what are you doing? Second of all, oh my God. Go read it. I have my reaction and my thoughts. I'll put it somewhere, description, card, wherever. You'll see it. Go watch it. I have a good time. But I'm not here to talk about the entire thing. I'm here to talk about Luffy. Our boy, so spoilers going on here. Our boy has awakened. He's named his own awakening Gear 5. And what it's basically the second half of the chapter is basically Who Frames Roger Rabbit, right? It's literally he just like, okay, hold on, I gotta back up. Luffy is not a paramecia type devil fruit user. That is probably one of the biggest reveals Oda has ever done. This chapter is going to go down in history as one of the biggest things. It's like this, and then probably when they get to Laugh Tale. It's like, I'm sure that there might be more chapters that are up there, but this is huge. Now, we get a break. So we have Luffy waking up, his heart is drumming, it's beating like it's different. He even comments on it and how it's different and it's weird, and everybody hears him and everybody can kind of feel something. He's putting off hockey, but like everybody can kind of feel something is up. Then we break off and go to the Gorosei, who are chit-chatting about his fruit. By the way, everybody was wrong. Everybody thought, okay, it couldn't be Luffy. It's too obvious for the devil fruit that they renamed to be Luffy's devil fruit. That's too obvious. It's got to be like Tama's or something like that, or whoever. It had to be somebody else. We were wrong. Absolutely wrong. Luffy's devil fruit is not the Gum Gum fruit, the Paramecia Gum Gum fruit, or Gumu Gumu no Mi that turns you into rubber, and then that's it. It is a mythical zone. A mythical zone. He ate a zone devil fruit that is called the human fruit model Nika. Oda is the master of suspense with this, a master of buildup. If you can have a story be built up slowly and without feeling like it's a grind, oh, it's so good. I am not here to talk about story building, though. I need to keep on task. So Luffy's got the Nikanika fruit, basically, right? The sun god Nika. We had some setup with the sun god Nika a number of chapters ago with Who's Who and talking about like, I forget what the context was, but he was talking about Luffy's fruit too, right? In which case, was that around the time that I made? I'm gonna leave another link to a video that I made about the origin of devil fruits. I'm wrong in the sense that I said in that video that I thought Luffy's fruit was just, it's just rubber and then it's whatever. But I still think that it holds water. So go watch that too. In any event, Luffy, okay, so they describe Luffy's devil fruit, the Nikanika fruit, the human fruit model Nika, sun god Nika, as possessing a body with the properties of rubber. So there we go. He is still technically made of rubber in some capacity, or at least he has the properties of rubber. That's why he can. That's why he can go up against Eneru, and it's like, okay, it's fine, whatever. Properties of rubber, and fighting in whatever way he fancies, bringing smiles to the faces of the people. The warrior of liberation, also known as the sun god Nika, or Nika the sun god, awakening. Now this is really where things kick off, right? Because this is where like the powers really start getting crazy. Awakening brings his rubbery body greater physical strength, more or less, honestly, how every devil fruit gets, but like basically how every like zone gets. They all get like an omni boost when they awaken, right? But this is where it's most interesting. Greater physical strength and freedom. It is said that in all the world, there is no power more ridiculous. Now, I'm going to say this. Everybody kind of got off on this like, oh, well, now Oda can draw him doing whatever. It's like, okay, hold up. Freedom does not mean that Luffy's going to start launching laser beams out of his eyes. He's not a pacifista. He's not Frankie shooting laser beams out of his nipples. He can't control ice or the wit. It's not like that. It is freedom in the sense of his rubber properties, right? So now think of it literally as a Looney Tunes character or like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where they make their hand into a baseball glove to catch people or whatever. It's like it's a Mr. Fantastic. He can just, as opposed to it being like, oh, he can stretch. Now he can literally mold his body probably into whatever. And we see this to a degree in the chapter where he's going Popeye. Speaking of which, the official Popeye account, they made a reference to Luffy about like put down the fruit and come eat some spinach or whatever. And that's really funny. And it's also very funny because clearly whoever's running that account is reading like the spoilers because it was posted before the official release, which I think is pretty funny. So yeah, Luffy is not going to be shooting off anything weird. It's just that now his abilities are through the roof. He even comments about how good he feels, that this is his peak. He is not only physically amazingly strong and like healthy and whatever, but he's able to do whatever comes to his mind. And again, it has to stay within somewhat of a limit of like flexibility and rubber and everything in that capacity. So he's not going to be doing anything super duper crazy in that way. But he's basically a cartoon character. He's already a cartoon character, but he's basically a cartoon character like Bugs Bunny or, again, Roger Rabbit. And I think what's so interesting about this, and I think I've stayed away a little bit from some people talking about this because I want to kind of form my own thoughts here. But I think what basically an awakened, I'm just going to call it Gum Gum Fruit. An awakened Gum Gum Fruit basically allows Luffy now freedom to do whatever he wants with his body. We see him reaching through the ceiling of Onigashima to grab Kaido, and he's got a big hand, but clearly he's not like going into gear 3 at that point. So I think he can freely flex his body in any possible way. He can make his muscles big. He can stretch his arm out all the way and make it giant. And in an instant, he can basically do all of his gears in one. And I think that's the freedom, right? It's whatever interesting thing that pops into his head he can do. He literally reflects. I didn't even realize it was a reflection. He reflects. He bounces back Kaido's it's not a Boro Blast or Boro Breath, it's a Blast Breath. Boro Breath might be the Japanese. Either way, he bounces it back, uses the ground as a trampoline, and then bounces it back. That is, and the entire time he is laughing and having a blast. And the final set of panels that we see is him holding his head, and he's just like it's almost like something comes over him when he goes into his gear, when he goes into gear 5 or awakens his devil fruit. It is crazy. And we see his eyes and his eyebrows start twirling, kind of like okay, I realized I saw some people making like things where it's like, oh, maybe his eyebrows are like Sanji, so it's like maybe there's some kind of connection there. I think the eyebrows are more so it's more so they're turning into the swirls on the fruit itself. Now, as long as we're talking about the goofiness of this fruit, I don't know if, like, let's say anybody could awaken it, which, by the way, in 800 years, it has not been awakened, which means that the last person who had the fruit and awakened it was the original Joy Boy. And actually, I want to go back to the Gorosei because they talk a lot more about than just the fruit itself. They say that zones have a will of their own, which I guess you could make. Here's the thing. I always kind of figured that maybe all devil fruits have some kind of a will of their own, not like they're going to start rolling around and talking to people or whatever. But Oda specifically says zones have a will of their own. Like an animal has been shoved into a fruit and now it's talking to people or whatever. I think that is what caused Luffy to eat the fruit in the first place. It's not just, oh, he's a glutton and he's an idiot. I think maybe he had it. And now I'm not 100% sure. I believe that it's like a talking to. It's not like Luffy heard a voice, but it's more of that like ethereal, like that the fruit was calling to him kind of thing. And honestly, at least the zone type devil fruits having a will of their own to some degree makes some sense, because otherwise, why? I mean, like, it already doesn't make any sense a whole lot with like physical objects eating, like a sword or like a gun eating a fruit. That doesn't make any sense. We'll find out how it does make sense when we meet Vegapunk. But the fact of the matter is that once Funk Free and Lasso, once they got those fruits and those powers, they had a will of their own. Those inanimate objects suddenly became animate. They became living beings, essentially. And the only way that you could kind of wrap your head around that is somehow maybe the fruit gave them sentience, right? Or maybe the fruit had sentience. So something that I think that maybe is kind of passing over the Gorosei's head is that they didn't know that death has to be the thing that caused Luffy to be reborn in his awakened form. There's multiple comments about like, oh, death makes a life or something like that, or death really makes a person. And I think that is what caused his awakening. Now, not everybody with the Gum fruit would end up dying and then suddenly being restarted or whatever. Luffy, okay, a lot of people are getting on the whole like Luffy's the chosen one kind of thing. And to a degree he is, but I think it's also a lot of coincidence going on here. I think that there are so many pieces, parts, and gears that need to turn in order to get to the point where you have a true Joy Boy. That is why in 800 years it has not happened. There may have been individuals that had the potential to be Joy Boy, maybe even Roger, right? Maybe even Odin, but they never got their hands on the devil fruit. Human model Nika, right? And so over the course of the 800 years, there probably were hundreds of people, I don't know about thousands, but hundreds of people that like probably had the Gum fruit and probably had the attributes, and they talked about it and being like, oh, it slipped through their hands, people eating it before they could get to it, and then they just are nobodies, right? I think at the base of it all, it kind of requires, in order to get to where Luffy is now, it kind of requires a bunch of stuff. Yes, he is a candidate to be Joy Boy. Did he also eat the fruit? Yes. Has he trained up and gotten to this point and kind of, are they compatible with each other also, right? Because who knows, maybe you could be a candidate for Joy Boy and eat the fruit and still not awaken. And that, I mean, who knows? So I think it's not just chosen one stuff. I think you need to fit these very specific things and be in the right place and time in order to get to the point where you become a Joy Boy for sure. This is not a perfect analogy also. But I think it's kind of like a lock and key kind of situation, or like a car or an ignition, right? Luffy, okay, so Luffy is the car, or like the ignition, right? The devil fruit is the key. You can put a key in a car and it'll do nothing. It's just whatever. If you turn your key a little bit though, it'll start like the battery, right? So you have some functions, and I think that's where Luffy's been for much of his life, right? He had it originally. That's the key in the car, but he couldn't use it correctly. And until he trained and got used to using it, it was basically useless. He was sitting in his driveway doing nothing. Then he turned the key a little bit, and the lights start coming on, and he can use it. He can start using his second gear, and maybe even third gear and fourth gear, and he can start doing stuff. He can listen to the radio. But ultimately, he is not using the fruit for its intended purposes, right? He has all this functionality, but no purpose for it. And that's where you get to the point where you ignite the engine. You turn the key entirely, it makes the and the car has started. And at this point, you can go somewhere. And I think it's not a perfect analogy. I thought about this in the shower. And this, I don't know. I stuck to this analogy. At that point, and I think this is where we are, Gear 5, which is what he's calling it. It's his awakening, but I think because Luffy is so goofy, Luffy's goofy. Because he's so silly, he automatically named it Gear 5 because that's just the first thing that came into his head, right? So Luffy, in his awakened form, is basically a car that is started and on the road moving. He is going somewhere and he is doing something. His devil fruit is being used as its intent. Maybe he would be the key. Okay, it doesn't matter. But the point is that everything is moving as it should be. Something I want to talk about that I haven't talked about. I've mentioned the goofiness of it all. And technically I mentioned like the Who Framed Roger Rabbit, like Looney Tunes stuff. The reason it's like that is because as soon as he picks up Kaido, things are different. It's not the same kind of Luffy fight that we've seen. Obviously, Oda does not shy away from goofy fights or goofy instances within the story. This is like, it's almost like it's shocking Kaido how weird this is. It's almost like he's got an area of an effect, right? Where Kaido is touching him and is in the area and his eyes are popping out because he's being spun around like a freaking like lasso going around there, and you could see his eyes popping out from his whatever, and it's not the normal eye popping out. Oda has drawn people with their eyes popping out, and usually their eyes are still connected to their head. This is full-on Looney Tunes, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Your eyes are like discs popping out of your head kind of thing. It's very weird. It is so weird, and it's weird even for Luffy. And honestly, something that I missed for a little bit after like the first read is you see like stars floating above Kaido's head after he's been smacked around a couple of times, and it's like, oh, he's dizzy. It's absolutely perfect. And I think what makes this perfect is Oda knows how to build tension, and even with tension in the air, Luffy is still free to be goofy. It's just who he is, so it doesn't feel like it's out of place. Also, his eyes are crazy. He's got like, his eyes are no longer, I don't even remember what his eyes would normally look like. Are they just black? Does he just have black eyes? I think he just has black eyes, just filled in eyes. In any event, his eyes are crazy. They've got like rings. Oh no. Yeah, it's just you see the white around his eyes and it's just black, right? I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to look into it. Either way, his eyes are nuts in this chapter. It's just so weird. And something that, okay, I think that now that he's awakened, he might actually defeat Kaido in the next chapter. Just straight up, he will defeat him. Maybe we'll go on break again, and then we'll get into a Kaido flashback. It's just so weird. It's so crazy to think that Luffy has been effectively in his hybrid form his entire life. For anytime he stretches, he's effectively in his hybrid form, right? He looks normal. He's in his normal. He looks like a normal person, but then he stretches, and suddenly that's his hybrid form. It's so weird because it's like, unlike an animal, right? It's not unlike an animal where it's like there's a clear distinction between human and giraffe, whatever, right? Where you could see like, okay, oh, Kaku's in his hybrid form. Kaido's in his hybrid form. He's melding together the two things. Nika is kind of because it's like a humanoid god, Nika is like kind of more of it's more of a concept. The stretching abilities it's a concept, so it's hard to know, like, of course his hybrid wouldn't look any different from his normal, like, unused form. I cannot get over the final panel of him, like the final big panel of him, and he's just laughing. And I think honestly the comment about bringing smiles to people's faces is perfect, because not only is he laughing, but also I think the goofiness, I think that people can see the goofiness. I think people can see the eyes popping out and the wackiness that's going on. So I don't think that's just like coloring for like the sake of like the reader. I think that if somebody was up there with them, they would see the craziness, Luffy's eyes popping out, Kaido getting, I mean, obviously he could get whipped around no matter what, but like the Popeye like qualities of Luffy. I think, honestly, there might even be more to it, right? This is just Luffy beating on Kaido, but maybe there's more of an area of, maybe the area of effect changes different things. Maybe when people go in there, they're more predisposed to smile. Also, there's the theory that maybe Kaido, and to a certain degree Vegapunk, were trying to recreate the Gum Gum fruit or the Sun God Nika fruit, because that's why they're called smiles, is because they were trying to create a fruit that in some way replicated the abilities of Luffy's fruit, and that's why all of Kaido's smile fruits are zone types. And that's honestly very, very crazy to think about. Also, it's insane if you look back at all of the things that Oda has like set up for this. I mean, obviously there was always going to be a connection between Luffy and the Sun God Nika before. We have the stuff on like Skypiea with his shadow, and when they're like dancing around the fire, Luffy kind of makes a Sun God Nika pose. So clearly there was going to be some kind of connection there. I did not think it would be so literal, though. Also, here's a thought. The giant hat underneath was a Pangea Castle. I bet Luffy can become a giant with his fruit now. I bet he can just like he could just stretch out his arm and make it big without even thinking. I bet he could just become big. And maybe that's also the connection with Caesar trying to make giants, right? Maybe Big Mom was onto the giant part of it all, and Kaido was onto the smile fruit part of it all, like the zone type fruit of it all. And somewhere in the middle is Luffy's human fruit model Nika, mythical human fruit model Nika. In the end, I am just so excited to see what Luffy could do with this. I would be remiss if I did not talk about this before the next chapter comes out. I am just so excited for chapter 1045. I'm sure it's already leaking right now as I'm recording. I was gonna look at a fake watch. I don't wear watches, but whatever. I'm sure it's already leaking by now. But I could not stop myself from talking about this. Luffy is a mythical zone type. That blows my mind, because that completely separates us from like Katakuri and his special Paramecia type. Like, it's so weird. And the fact that Luffy names all of his abilities, well, technically he names them all based on like the animals that he was fighting during his 2-year training, but it's kind of insane. There's been so much like foreshadowing between like color pages where his hair's on fire, because it kind of looks like his hair's on fire here, and the goo, like the tree sap coming off of the trees, that kind of looked like when his hair was like kind of melting, and just like all the Nika stuff. It makes sense. Now there is a theory that I saw that Shanks was actually intending the fruit for Ace, because he thought that, oh, well, Roger's kid would probably be Joy Boy, right? And maybe Ace was a candidate for Joy Boy. But again, I think it's like a million pieces coming together. Luffy was the one destined to get it, not because he was like a candidate, because I'm sure there might be multiple candidates, maybe all at once, right? Maybe Roger was a candidate, but he didn't have the devil fruit. That could have been that could have been the one of the things that he was missing. But I don't think it's just being a candidate for Joy Boy and also having the devil fruit. I think you have to have a very specific personality, have a very specific point, be at a very specific point in time. I think there's a lot that goes into making Luffy the chosen one than people are giving it credit. He was not always destined to be the Joy Boy. If Shanks had not taken it to, what is it, Fuchsia Village, and he had just taken it far away, Luffy would lose his candidacy, or he would lose his chance to be Joy Boy. I think that's ultimately how it goes, right? Where it's like, you either are or you aren't, and you're either in the right place at the right time or not. I'm stoked to see what Luffy can do. I don't think he realizes that he's been awakened, so it's going to be really cool to see how it all shakes out. Who's going to tell him he's a zone? Who's going to correct him about his powers? I'm sure he doesn't care what kind of power he has, as long as he just can keep doing what he can do. And I'm so excited. I think I'm going to leave it there. I don't know if I have a whole lot more to talk about in terms of this. There are much more. There are hundreds of other YouTubers that are way better at theorizing and talking about this stuff than I am. I just couldn't stop myself from bringing it up. And I like, it's so amazing. I love this twist. I love it. It is, everybody thought it was going to be a resin fruit or something a bit more like in line with the rubber itself. But no, it's a god fruit. Luffy is a god at this point. It's great. I'm excited. I can't wait for the next chapter. Let me know what you guys think about this. I know that it's a little divisive, and I know that some of that comes from like people being like, oh, Luffy can do whatever he wants now. Yes and no. It's not as simple as he can do whatever he wants now. Oda just has a lot more freedom to draw Luffy however he wants. He's no longer contained by the old rules. Things have opened up a bit more. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section about this. I'd love to hear other people's thoughts and opinions on this. Also, if you enjoyed anything I had to say, make sure to leave a like. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you want to see more of this, whatever this madness is, from me, I mean, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. I'm thinking about maybe making a Blackbeard video because I have some thoughts about that. Probably unoriginal thoughts, but I want to talk about it anyways. I don't know when I'm going to do that. I wanted to get this one out of the way, though, before the next chapter. Either way, I will see you guys in another video. So long.